And I found that I've actually landed more jobs by actually breaking down my estimates. And that's the other thing too, is I get a lot of calls saying they want quotes. I don't do quotes. I do estimates.
Welcome back to another episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast, where I, Ryan Deemer, sit down with business owners and industry professionals to learn their stories, pull out some nuggets for you guys to become better business owners, whether you're in excavation or I've got friends that pick up dog poop that have learned a lot from this show. So thanks for tuning in. I'm excited. We've got a special guest today. He's actually all the way up in Kenai, Alaska. So his name's Jason Baldwin. He owns a company called Earthscape LLC. And before I introduce Jason, I just want to remind you guys, if you're looking for your next skid steer attachment, head over to skidsteernation.com. We provide high quality American made skid steer attachments to help you make more money on your projects, become more efficient with durable equipment. It's what everybody wants. And don't forget to head over to groundbreakinggrowth.com. It's our coaching and consulting business to help you become better business owners. Everyone's great in the field, but we struggle sometimes in the office. So that's what we're there to help. Without any further ado, man, Justin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. Like I said, right before we started the show here, I just said, it's rare that we get people from Alaska, and it's like a whole different world up there. And I'm excited to hear the different struggles you face just because of your location that guys in, centrally located locations don't have to even think about.
Yeah. So there's one thing that a lot of people don't realize with Alaska is the vast amount of land that we have here, right? I mean, it's you can take Texas and basically cut Alaska in half, and Texas would be the third largest state. I mean, it's huge here. But with that, we also have the least amount of population. So, I mean, in the entire state of Alaska, I believe we're about 730,000 people for the entire state of Alaska. So it's kind of unique. There's not a lot of people, and like Anchorage is our biggest city here, and I think there's around 330,000 people. But as a crow flies, I live about 60 miles from Anchorage. But as the road system goes, I'm a 3-hour drive, about 150 or so miles away. So it takes a full day just to go to the big city, And the darkness here in the wintertime, man, it's actually here in not too long, we're going to start losing daylight. We lose up to 5 minutes a day. So it gets dark quick, short days, 6 hours long, usually in the middle of the winter. We haven't had a ton of snow this last couple of years, but I mean, we've definitely had our fair share. And then, so our building season and our dirt work season is extremely short. We're talking, most guys, in the landscaping industry putting lawns and stuff in 3-4 months tops, and if road restrictions hang on, it's shortens that up. Weather window. I mean, we get a lot of rain usually. Fortunately, this summer, we haven't had a lot of rain yet. Last summer, it rained every single day. And that makes a big struggle. I mean, so it's definitely tough. It's hard to, make your money in 3-4 months to help carry through the winter. And it's definitely something I'm learning, for sure. Instead of spending all your money trying to buy gear and stuff like that, you need to save up to just survive winter.
So I have to.
A lot of guys get into snow plowing.
Yeah, I have to ask you. You started the business in 2021. Knowing that it's a short season, what was the deciding factor for you to actually create a business out of excavation?
So what ended up happening is, this is actually, believe it or not, I hate the term side hustle or side gig or whatever all the people are calling it, because I work my business. Actually, I put in just as many, if not more, than my normal job. So I have a normal daytime job. I'm pretty fortunate. I've had a pretty blessed career in the oil and gas industry. And I've put in over 20 years in the oil and gas industry. And so I've been through all the oil and gas downturns and all that stuff, never been laid off, fortunately, which is extremely rare. And then I got picked up by it was formerly Tesoro, which is a refining company. And it was a big company. And they got a local refinery here in town. And then what ended up happening with that is everything was going great. And we got our Tesoro got bought out by Marathon Petroleum, which is the United States' largest oil and gas refiner. And you know how that is, man, when you got gobbled up by a big corporation and things were okay. Then obviously COVID hit and they were talking about shutting us down, selling us, and stuff like that. And I asked my wife, I said, almost 20 years in this game, it's never been laid off. I can, statistically, that's an impossibility. And I said, well, we got a little cash saved up. Why don't we go ahead and start this business? It's something that's always been on the back of my mind for, gosh, 25 years. And I just always lived that comfortable oil and gas life where it's either too busy or just other things going on where it's like, I don't really need to do it. And then, like obviously with a lot of your listeners and stuff, we're all affected by that, by COVID. And then I don't want to get into the politics of it, but they were going to institute some mandates. They were right on the edge of instituting mandates where I was working. And that was a hard line for me. So I thought it was best for me and my family to have a backup plan. And so we just threw the dice and said, this is something I can do. I've messed around with it quite a bit. I grew up with equipment with my dad. He was a heavy equipment mechanic. I went to trade school, actually, Wyoming Tech, to be a diesel tech. And I ended up in the oil and gas refining as operations somehow. And so it's always kind of been in my blood to want to be around the gear and stuff like that. But due to some stuff that was going on, I made the decision to start this business. And man, it's taken it to a whole new level now. And then now they never sold us. They never instituted any mandates. And with the pay and the benefits and all that stuff, it'd be foolish for me to leave. So I work a week on, week off schedule, take some vacations. So I get 3 weeks off in a row. Like I'm on a 3-week vacation right now. And I do my business on the side, but I work 84 to 100 hours a week when I'm at the plant. And then I'm working 100 hours a week on the business too. And
that's some
so
dedication,
it's
man.
grueling for sure. Yeah, we've been rolling hard, and man, I'm super blessed. This business is booming. It's taken off. I finally I've tried hiring people over the last couple of years. Man, that's a struggle. And I got one guy this year that was fantastic. He's good at maintenance, fabrication. He's dedicated. And then I had a random phone call like 3-4 weeks ago from a guy that moved up from Oregon. And you just started calling landscape and excavation contractors when he got here. He's like, this is what I can offer you. I was like, well, I'll try you out. So he turned out to be phenomenal. And so with the crew that I have right now, I'm actually getting to the point to where I can actually pull myself out and trust them to get the job done to the quality standards that I need and want
That's awesome.
for my clients. And
that was a big, just as you were telling that little story, I'm like, oh, I totally would give that guy a shot. Cause not very often do you find people that are motivated enough just to randomly cold call companies and say, hey, here's where I'm from. Here's the skill set I have. Here's what I'm willing to provide you. Like that initiative right there means a lot.
Yeah. And it was actually really cool. And I heard it yesterday from them. They spent this last week, they were by themselves and they're banging out some jobs, man. They did phenomenal. They'd send me pictures, updates, stuff like that. And I got a client review from a client of mine and saying how pleasant they were to work with, how great a job they did. And man, that means the world to me. And so yesterday, actually, the guy that just hired on, he was telling my best friend, he's like, I'm super thankful to be working for Justin. The company's great. I love the work. I love the atmosphere. I mean, I take care of these guys, right? I buy them the clothes, I buy them the gear that they need. They wanted it. We're doing some tree work yesterday, and guy wanted a new saw. I was like, let's go get a saw for you. I buy them lunch almost every day, and just take care of the guys. Because at the end of the day, without my guys, my business is really nothing. Because I can't do 100-hour weeks every week. And so I try to put a lot of graciousness back into my crew. And
I
think it's paying dividends.
I always remember when I was in college, I worked for a guy as a manager of a bar. And like similar to you, right? Like he take you to lunch almost every day when you're doing things in there. He never micromanaged. He never shot down and made your ideas seem foolish. And like, if you kind of walked a little taller, like, hey, I manage this place, almost like an ownership mentality, he just kind of let you do it. And I
Mhm.
really think like letting people feel like they're part of it like that and not just an employee makes a huge difference. Like, that's one of the biggest lessons I've ever had in life, like working for somebody else.
Yeah, and I mean, there's obviously the trust. You got to trust people, right? But the moment that I hire them on, I'm giving them the keys to my life. They get the keys to the shop, the keys to the equipment. So at that point, I stopped and thought, okay, I can't trust these guys to do a job. Why am I giving them keys to my shop, my business? And then so I had to change the way I thought. And it's like, if I'm trusting these guys with the keys to my investment, I need to let them do their job. I mean, it's not like they're out here wanting to mess up or anything, and they're doing their best they can. And I lucked out and got two phenomenal guys. I pay them well, I take care of them, and it's worked for me, and or working, I should say, for me, and it's been an amazing ride. And so now we're looking at growing the business even more now. The gentleman that I just hired, he's actually brought up some pretty cool business ideas that I wouldn't mind doing a little bit more diversification. I'm sure you looked over my. I don't have a website, which is actually I need to do one, but I just haven't found the energy or the time to really put in for it, And
And I'll be
but like through
honest,
my
man,
Facebook page,
if you're in a low population area, website's probably not as important as you are living in a rural, like a suburban area where nobody gets to know anybody. I mean, everybody
yeah,
knows everybody probably within a 40-mile radius of you or knows of.
yeah, and that's the thing too is I do have a little bit of an edge on most contractors because I've been here my entire life. I was born and raised here, so I know. Man, I remember there was a time in this town where I knew everybody, and now it's like I wake up in the morning, we got a Walmart now and all kinds of stuff, and so things are changing for sure. But I do know a lot of people, which helps out a lot with the business connections and stuff like that. And there's it's unreal, man. I can't explain how blessed we are with this business. And I've been investing everything back into it. Fortunately, I do have a pretty decent day job, so I haven't had to live off the business yet. And so that's allowed me to just stick all the cash back into the business, buying gear and equipment and moving to the next phase, trying to get everything. I'm trying to get some diversification going right now. I don't like having all my eggs in one basket. And so we're working on some other challenges right now to
So
diversify.
what let's talk about that for a second. Like, what do you consider all of your eggs in one basket?
So like with the excavation side and landscape side, it's 3-4 month window, right? So I mean, you need to make all your operational expenses and all your payroll and all that stuff. If you want to keep guys all year round, I mean, you got to be able to keep them busy in the winter. Well, we can't guarantee snow. Um, Everybody's got a snowplow around here, so it's hard to compete in that market. Um, there's tree cutting. In fact, we do a lot of tree cutting and a lot of logging in the winter. But that's because we had the spruce bark beetle hit us pretty hard here, like really hard. But that market's starting to die too, because that's been going on for about 5-6 years. So everybody that's going to pay for that service pretty much has already paid for it. And so, like, I try to buy equipment, that it's not one piece that does one specific thing. Like, I'm not going to go buy a forestry harvester, or $1 million piece of equipment to go just strictly do trees. I need to buy equipment that I can use year round, or maybe an attachment that yeah, it might not be the best thing for the skid steer, but man, we can get it done. And to keep my OpEx low, to help survive the winters and stuff. So now I'm kind of, so obviously I got my day job, this business going with the landscaping and stuff. We do a little bit of snow plowing, not a lot. I'm not a big fan of snow plowing, honestly. It's hard on trucks. It's hard to pay for people and fuel, and it just a lot of insurance. And I'd rather have my guys working on painting gear and cleaning gear and fixing stuff all winter and making sure it's ready to go for the short season. Because you have one part, like I had an EGR valve go bad on my skid steer, and that was right in the middle of COVID, man. And luckily, there was a client that the local dealership that had an EGR failure, and he ordered one, and he gave me his. That's the only reason why I survived.
Yeah,
And
because you've been talking months.
months, months, and Yeah, I thought honestly when that happened, I thought my business was done. It was the first 6 months of my business starting it, and I was like, yeah, we're done. And
And how
that
much was
guy
that
was
part?
luckily, oh, you could have put a dollar sign. I probably would have paid.
No, but how much was
Probably
it?
would have. I think that part was with labor and everything was less than $1,000.
You're
You
talking
know,
about killing a business over $1,000 part. It's crazy. That's how
yeah,
like the
because I
world that we
because I
lived
couldn't get
in.
it,
Right.
and it's not like I could go buy a skid steer at that point. There's nothing available,
I know.
and it was wild. And so now we're actually like for diversification, I have an old expired gravel pit on a highly trafficked road, and so I'm renting a shop right now, and I don't like paying rent, so we're going to build a big shop and office for the business, and then I got enough land there that we're going to start doing rental shops, and just start carrying them down. My goal is when I retire, I can live off some of the rental income,
It's a great
and
plan.
so where that's kind of what we're trying to do. It's just trying to get there, it's a lot of money, a lot of time, but we'll get there for sure.
So when you say diversification, you're not talking about adding more services to the excavation business. You're talking about finding new income revenue streams that aren't dependent
Yeah,
on the excavation company.
exactly. Exactly. So like we do offer a large list. Actually, most people will consider it too much probably to our line of services. But because the excavation side, my idea is like down south when I was traveling, I used to work for Baker Hughes and we travel down south all over. So I'd go to Texas and whatnot and I'd look at all the subdivisions, and like a subdivision would have a couple hundred homes in it, but they're all nice, neat. All the lawns are done before people would buy the house and all that stuff. And up here in my area, it is not like that. People will throw up a house. They don't do anything for the landscaping. They do the bare minimum. The contractors do in out. So my goal with my business is I want to work with a couple premier builders around here and offer my services to, be the first dig on the driveway to the house pad all the way to the final landscaping, one-stop shop. And that's what I'm trying to get into. I'm trying to build that market because that market is not available here because it's up to the homeowner usually to find the landscaping and whatnot. And honestly, a lot of people can't afford to, spend $500,000 on a house, because that's like a starter home price now. And or up here it is, and spend another $25,000 on landscaping. So if I could work with a contractor where it's kind of all encompassed in one, and they can finance the whole deal, and we all win. All three of us win. The homeowner wins, I win, and the contractor wins, and then their products shine. And because they don't have dirt, they got nice landscaping in, and um. So we just bought a Hitachi 135 excavator. That is probably my single largest, most expensive purchase to date. Um, and I bought that because I needed to extend my season. So what I mean by that is the landscaping and road restrictions and all that stuff, trying to get screen topsoil, especially if it's wet. It was a very short window. Well, I can open that window up if we could have a bigger hoe to, start doing site preps and stuff during road restrictions. We can actually, get on site before and start doing all the house digs for all the contractors and then do the septic systems and all that stuff. And then it goes into the back end too. Late August, September, October, we can do site preps and septics and well lines and stuff like that just before snow hits. And then through the winter, you could still do your land clearing and stuff through the winter, pulling stumps, trees, stuff like that. It's a little harder on gear, but we can do it. So I bought that piece to help extend that season on both ends. So instead of trying to make all my money in 3-4 months, I can make it a 6 month window. And
I got to
and
cut you
it's
off. Sorry, but I love how your thought process is so strategic as far as can I use the equipment in more than one fashion? Does it help me extend my season? Like, is this just things that you've learned along the way, or did you have a mentor, or did you read? Like, how did you develop this process? I think a lot of guys out there rush to buy equipment and then go, "Shit, I didn't need it."
They do, and a lot of guys are rushing and they're financing it all, which like I understand, like I had to finance my big hoe, but I'm very strategic about my financing also, right? I do quite a bit of cash down and get a lower monthly payment. Actually, that hoe is probably about the only thing I owe on, thank God. And I do that because I see these guys, they're going out going, cat up here is like throwing financing out like none other. The weirdest terms. It's just, and
I think a
I worry
7-year-old could
there's a
get
couple.
financed at a cat dealer.
Yeah, it's, and I mean, you're signing your line on $150,000 Mini X and $100,000 259 or whatever, and it's just like the ROI on something like that. Because I look at every piece of equipment as an ROI. How many hours am I going to have to put on this machine to break even? And I can't justify a $110,000 skid steer. I mean, it's going to be wore out by the time it's paid for. And especially in my short seasons up here, that's, I guess, the hang up, right? Most people down south, they got 7-8 months. They could probably run it if not year round. I don't have that option. And I do have a mentor. He's more of a father figure to me than anything. And he actually had a concrete business, multiple ones actually. And I grew up around him. I watched his business flourish and have some downfalls too. And I always thought it was a cheaper and easier lesson to learn by watching other people's successes and triumphs than repeating them myself. So I try to look at when I'm looking at other contractors or look at other business owners, it's like, what are they doing well? What are they doing poorly? Because I don't want to do the poor stuff. I just kind of want to learn from them the best I can about what to do, what not to do. And that's kind of how I did it. And I'm very analytical on my equipment, about how I purchase things, when I purchase things, how I purchase things, and making sure that I get the best bang for the buck on my jobs and my clients. And yeah, like honestly, the best thing I ever bought so far is that I bought a Bobcat T650, and man, I was scared when I bought it. I mean, it was a used machine. It had like 760 hours on it. Paid $47,000 for it, and I was like, yeah, I'm in it now. I gotta make the money. And I tell you what, that was a life changer. That machine is I've probably 10x that machine. I don't know. I mean, that thing makes so much money that for the price that I paid for it, one of the best investments I've ever made.
Yeah, I find that
And
there's always like that one purchase that makes you go, I'm in it
oh
now.
yeah, and I feel it. You know, like my guys are running it behind me right now. I'm every time I see that thing hit my rearview mirror, it's like, yeah, that was it. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, but like for me,
And
like we started Skid Steer Nation, and that's a website, and I didn't pay. Like I built it and learned how to do it all my own. So I think we started the business 4 or 5 years ago with $2,500. Not a lot of money. And
yeah,
it wasn't until like
yeah.
I paid for like an ecom mentor course, and it was like 12 or 15 grand. I'm like, okay, we're in it now. Like, I've got
Yeah.
20,000 out. I have no hard assets, nothing that I could sell. Like, we're in it. We got to figure it out.
So I guess the kicker is for me too. I'm in a little bit different situation than most people, especially startups. And that's because I do have a pretty good day job, right? So like at the worst case scenario, let's say the business failed day one, and I owned a skid steer and a trailer. Okay, cool. I got a skid steer and a trailer at my house, like I mean, or an asset to sell. So that wasn't going to kill me, and it's something I could live with. But I bought an end dump, so I got a dump truck now. I'm looking at buying a second one. Those are purchases that do not have a very high ROI, but they're a necessary evil. And so I'm not a dump trucker. I don't like dump trucking, but I have to do it for the business just to be able to move material. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just so actually it's kind of interesting. Is like my dump truck's an '81 GMC Brigadier, and people look at it and they're just like, man, that thing's old, and I mean it's older than I am, right? But I bought it because it was a fantastic deal. I think I paid like 11 grand for it, and it had 28,000 original miles on it. 14-yard box, double frame truck, bare bones truck for sure, like a 300 big cam Cummins, so I mean, there's not enough horsepower to break itself. And I just put the most amount of money into that truck this year by buying 8 drive tires and a set of brakes and some air cans. It cost me 2/3 of the cost of the purchase of the truck. And it's on the job right now. We're using it today. And so as far as ROI goes, that was awesome. That was a good buy. And so I look for deals like that.
And I'm telling you, like, you find old, cool equipment like that, like, find a unique way to brand it as its own piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And it just starts chatter in the community.
It does. I had so many old timers come up, and man, that brings up childhood memories, seeing those trucks,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, these guys have got to be 60 years old, I mean, the truck's 40 something years old. So it's definitely a unique piece, for sure. It's not very, I'm the only one that's allowed to drive that truck because it does have some quirks to it. And so I don't let the guys drive it. And that's why I'm looking at buying a second dump truck. I'm actually looking at buying an automatic truck for guys and something a little bit easier to run 10, 12 hours a day, and because 10, 12 hours a day in my truck you'll need a chiropractor, after that. But that's what I do, man. I'm not a big fan of going out and buying brand spanking new equipment. Mostly because it's extremely expensive. So like my skid steer, right, $47,000. That's 760 hours on it. Man, we just hit over 2,000 on it right now. And the thing runs like a dream, right?
Yeah.
I didn't take that hit.
No, that's smart. I'm a big proponent of that too. I think rent until you prove the concept and you've got enough work lined up that you can justify the payment of the ownership.
Yep.
And very rarely, like, I mean, new's nice. It's covered under warranty. It's this. And if you're a guy that's just going to write it off all the depreciation year 1, year 2, and you're going to cycle it through every 2-3 years and you've got the operation to handle that, I get it. But if you're starting out and you're sub 5 years in business, you better hold on to that cash. And there's a lot of great deals out there. And like, you can buy, I tell all the dirt guys, I'm like, you want to buy a skid steer, go buy it from a land clearing company. Because all they do is wear the hydraulics out. And if you're pushing dirt, you don't need a lot of hydraulics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's a give and take on everything.
There is, for sure. And I'm learning that for sure. With me, fortunately, I'm pretty mechanically inclined. I do a lot of my own service work. So there's that cost too, right? A lot of people get in the business, they might know the dirt side. They don't know the mechanical side. So they're paying dealers, they're paying mechanics, they're waiting in line, to do all that, where it's like, well, I get on the horn and get parts coming and I'm fixing it myself. And which is kind of unique, I think. I mean, a lot of guys can, change oil, stuff like that. But when we're talking like diagnosing hydraulic systems and whatnot, like, I'm in it. I got all the testing gear to do it. Because I did spend quite a bit of time in the oil field as a mechanic. And so that's definitely an edge that I got on a lot of people. Is I could work till midnight working on a piece of gear to get it ready for 6 in the morning.
Really, Justin, like, the value isn't so much the cost of savings on a service play. In my opinion, the value is it's not gone for a week. It's back to work the next day.
Yeah. And you got to think too. So like Cat, we'll use Cat as an example because that's pretty much across the United States. But we have a Cat dealership. So we're a 3-hour drive one way. You have a piece of gear go down. You're paying a tow bill, or you're hauling it up to Anchorage to get it fixed from where we're at. So you got a minimum of a day down just travel time, up and back. And then you got to go back up and get that piece of equipment when it's done. So that's 2 days right there, plus whatever time for parts and getting it fixed. So I've learned, like, I read a lot of forums and stuff. Like on my T650, I look at a lot of the common problems with it. And I actually ordered parts that have in my stock in case it goes down. So that, and then during COVID, like, parts were hard to get. So I actually bought a hand-foot control machine because I was scared that if a joystick went bad, I wouldn't be able to get one.
Because electronics were the worst.
Yeah. So I was like, well, we bought a hand-foot machine, and actually the guys are loving it. And I've always grew up with hand-foot control machines, and so it didn't really bug me either way. But like setting grades, stuff like that, feeling that back pressure on the hydraulics and stuff is it's dynamite. It's awesome.
I've got this
And
funny story. I've got a friend of mine. He's just short of 60 right now, but we put a GoPro in the skid steer of him operating one of the attachments years ago. And I watched the video and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, what? And I'm like, your knees are all over the place. He goes, I still run. He's like, my feet still operate like it's a hand foot machine, man. Has ever since I bought a joystick model. He goes, it's second nature.
well, yeah, it's I can definitely tell a difference with like what boots I wear though, which is kind of interesting, right? Like, so if I buy a brand new pair of boots, man, it's going to take me a minute to get the feel right in my toes. But if I have like my boots right now, I kind of wore out where I kind of like them, you know, and like, okay, I can feel everything. But get a brand new pair of boots or some rain boots or something like that where they're nice and thick, and we all wear steel toes, so everything's a little different, right? So just the change in your boots, can definitely tell in the skid steer, which is kind of wild. People don't think about it, but it is, you know, when you're trying for that feel, it's
Yeah.
significantly different.
Well, it's no different
And
than when you get in like your wife's car and the brakes are adjusted different than your truck. And you're throwing her
yeah,
head into the windshield and she's looking at you like, what are you doing? And I'm like, sorry.
or yeah, when I get my wife's car, how long has it been pulling left for? You know, so I didn't know it was pulling left.
Why is it
You know,
22
just kind of
miles to
interesting.
empty on the gas tank? How does that work?
Yeah, yep, yeah, and so, but yeah, man, there was a lot of little issues that finally spurred that moment. You know, and in growth in my life and maturity and stuff like that. Definitely, you know, if I want to say I would do this 10 years ago, for sure. When people ask what's like the biggest thing you'd do different, I said, you know, I wish I did it 10 years ago. But on the flip side of that, I think about it and I was like, I don't know if I could, or if I would have been in the mindset or the maturity level or whatnot
I
to handle
totally
it
agree
10
with
years
you.
ago.
Totally agree with you. I
And
think everybody is exactly where they're supposed to be, learning
mhm.
exactly what they need to learn for the next phase of their life. Cause I'm the same thing as you. Like there's different things I look back on going, and I'm like, I would have failed at it, guaranteed.
Yeah, especially financially, right? Like, I mean, there's no way I could have 10 years ago. There's no way I could have done this, you know, and so, and I traveled a lot for work, you know, in my prior career. I've been at the refinery now for 10 years. So prior to that, I traveled a lot. I was traveling 200 days a year. And so there's no way I could have done it, obviously. But I wish I could say that I could do it 10 years ago because it would have been amazing. But I don't think I would have been
Absolutely. But I mean,
able to.
keep your head up, man, where you're at today, what you've done in 3 short years, the vision you
Yeah.
have for the business, understanding, like with your short seasons, diversification outside of excavation, looking like you get the big picture. And
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah. And then
sometimes the hardest
my
thing is
biggest
to
struggle
see.
right now is dealing with the skid steers will travel guys. You know, the guys that aren't paying insurance, they're not paying following DOT. They're not, heck, I don't even know if half of them have driver's licenses. I don't know. But I'm seeing it and they're just bogging the market down, you know, working. Like, I'll be honest, like I know my numbers on everything except for the Hitachi 135 because I've only put about 30 hours on it. So I haven't really went through the full service cycle yet. I haven't, you know, figured out everything about it. But like my T650, um, and this might sound high to some people, but so in the contractor life, every 2,000 hours, you can, you know, 18 to 2,000 hours, a new set of tracks. Well, we all know those are about $4,000. I'm hoping to get up into the 4,000 hour mark before I have to retire the machine or sell it to a homeowner or something. So that's two sets of tracks. I know I got, you know, every 1,000 hours you need to do a tensioner and a belt on it. So like I factor that cost in. But I know the cost of that machine for oil changes and fuel, basic maintenance and depreciation, including tracks in that time frame that I plan on keeping it down to the dollar. It's cost me $43 an hour to own that machine and operate it. And there's a lot of guys that I don't think they could tell you even how many gallons of fuel they put in it. And to me, that's the death of a business. If you don't don't know your true back end costs. And it's not just the machine cost, it's your accounting cost on the back end, it's your advertising on the back end, it's your attorneys, it's your like we do QuickBooks, so there's all those subscription fees to that stuff, your credit card fees, there's the work comp, which actually I was talking to a guy yesterday about work comp. He said, well, work comp shouldn't really matter because that's all built into your hourly rate. I said, well, it does matter when you got a couple of guys, on a rain day sitting in your shop. Somebody's work comp then isn't billed out on a job, it's billed out to you. And
Yeah, and
so it does
it's not
matter.
billed out on by the hour what work they're doing either. They're just
No. So
categorized
it's like,
as field workers for the whole year.
yeah. So it's like I know all the numbers, right? And down to like even I bought a Dodge Ram 5500 flatbed pickup just because of my mounts. I gotta get a new mount. And so I even figured out the cost of this truck, what it's costing me, and I bill it out. So like I don't work by the hour. I do strictly a day rate. So it's day rate plus materials with the exception of my dump truck. It's paid by the hour. Because materials quantities move and whatnot. So it's hard to put a day rate on a truck. And I don't want to charge a client for a dump truck that's sitting there all day. So I run that by the hour, but I figure my Dodge for hauling some gear. I figure the trailer, I figure the skid steer and the attachments, my labor is all in one day rate. So when I go do a bid, I'm not sitting here thinking about, well, I need this per hour, I need this per hour. I've already figured that out on the back end. So when I talk to the client, I can look at the job and be like, yeah, this is going to take me X amount of days times my day rate. And this is your cost. So like it makes it super quick, but you have to know those back end numbers to come up with a day rate. And I see a lot of people are just, I swear there's a lot of guys that just have a dartboard in their truck and they're just throwing darts at seeing what sticks.
Yeah, they are. And
I think that's,
yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. The hourly rate guys, that's crazy. I'll go one step farther. Like it's your job as a business owner to provide quick, easy solutions to property owners.
yeah.
And I really think, and especially knowing your numbers, I would slightly challenge you to try this on a couple small and mid-sized jobs, but get rid of the day rate and just give them a project number.
So what I've noticed is I've tried this two ways. So I know a lot of guys give them that project cost number, and that might work in a more populated area, right? The problem is here is everybody's so well connected and I found that I've actually landed more jobs by actually breaking down my estimates. And that's the other thing too, is I get a lot of calls saying they want quotes. I don't do quotes. I do estimates. And that is a technical term that a lot of people don't understand either. So what I end up doing is I actually break it down. I'm going to have to say it's kind of a flat rate slash day rate, right? Because when I look at a job, my first line item is my labor and equipment. And that is the cost to the client for me to do that job. So say I'm doing a job and I estimate it at 3 days. That's that price. And I usually hold that as like, that is the amount of money you're going to be charged if we stay in this scope of work for the project. So that's kind of like a fixed cost. So if I get it done in 2.5 days, it's a little bit more money in the pocket. 4 days, I'm hurting, right?
So you're
and
doing
then the
project,
materials
yes.
are. And then I break down the materials because what I would like to see is my clients, I want them to know the cost of the project and where their money's being spent. And I found that has actually helped me out with the higher end clientele. And because they like that. They like to see where their money's being spent. And I mean, honestly, like that's been working for me. I know it doesn't work in some markets or with some other people, but it has worked.
But you're kind of doing a hybrid version of project-based pricing, because
I am.
you don't go back and say, "Hey, it was 4 days and 3. I underestimated. You owe me another $1,800."
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
basically saying this is the labor and machine. Like this is right? Like material can fluctuate. Yep. If we need more rock, it is that. So I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying there, but it's the guys that go in there and say, yeah, I'll do that job. We're $1,600 a day. Well, how many days are you gonna take? Well, 2 to 4. Like that doubles the project.
Yeah, that's a huge scope difference, right? And then like for like the tree work and stuff, I do that all by the tree. And there's some companies here in town. They've asked me, they're like, I don't understand why I do it by the tree. And I was like, well, I know my day rate. I know what I need. So if you say you know, say it's $2,500 is my day rate or whatever, I can just divide that by how many trees are there, and it gives me a per tree cost. And then that way, when the client goes shopping around looking for tree companies, it's like some jobs I've been down into the $30 to $50 a tree for full removals, which is extremely cheap. But I figured out a way to make it pretty profitable for me, and so that's helped me out quite a bit. But they'll see my bid, it averages out at $50 a tree. Well, other guys are $150 a tree, and then they're like, so I get work, right? But I've invested some money in some gear that makes it pretty beneficial, pretty easy for me. So I could do with our beetle kill issue up here, on average by myself, fully processed, I can do 5 to 6 trees an hour. That's the logs decked and brush gone and everything, which is pretty impressive, right? So I mean, if you do the math, I'm averaging 50 or $100 a tree, pretty good hourly.
That's
And
a really good hourly.
and then the best I've ever done is I had 2 guys on a landing, and we did 300 trees in 22 hours, fully processed.
Wow.
We're grooving that one. That was awesome. And we did and I get to keep the wood too. So then I sell it on the back end. I got a guy that buys all the logs from me, and so that helps out, And that's kind of what we do in the wintertime. I like doing it in the winter. You being in attachments and stuff, I'm sure you've heard of Dymax.
Yep.
So we purchased a Dymax 14-inch shear transporter for that T650, and I think on my Facebook page you can see it, and we do quite a bit of work with it, and that has been a game changer for.
Yeah, I've looked at their equipment,
industry.
and they make really good stuff. I mean, they're obviously very niche in the forestry industry, but that's how cool is that, right? You can grab the tree, shear it off, and then transport it.
Yeah, and so like I can get up to, a lot of people get nervous. There's a lot of power lines, there's a lot of houses, sheds, gardens, whatever. And then I'm going through in the wintertime, so I can drive over everybody's lawns and all that stuff, go shear and transport these trees to a driveway, do all my processing and clean up in the driveway. So I'm not dragging brush out from the forest, It's all out in the driveway. It's easy to clean, dispose of, load all the brush up in the dump truck and go, right? So that's why I was able to do 5 or 6 trees an hour by myself, go in there, shear it, transport it out, limit myself.
So then I mean, not odd question, but are you going back and offering them an upsell on stump removal or stump grinding?
I don't. I'm kind of weird like that. I am, with me doing all the landscaping and stuff, I'm not a fan of stump grinding in our area. I feel it's like an oversold product here. And the reason why I say that is your stump grinders are only getting 4 to 6 inches in the dirt, and they're leaving a lot of the root behind. And then it makes a terrible mess for cleanup. All the wood debris and stuff ends up rotting. And then they call me to come put in a lawn. And then they're like, well, we already stump ground. Well, it's like, I still got to bring a mini X in here and start digging up all the roots and stuff.
I was asking you, like, however you remove it, but I mean, you're charging them to shear the tree, process it, and get it off property. Are you upselling, is the removal of the root ball and the grubbing of the trees included
the removal
in that
of the
price,
root ball,
or is that a separate upsell?
No, that's a whole separate upsell.
Got
it. And then there's some clients that we'll come in and do the whole meal deal, right? We'll come in and do the trees, do the stumps, do the lawns, the whole 9 yards. But a lot of these, I mean, we're in Alaska, so a lot of people like their privacy. They like their woods. They like the natural growth. I mean, it's they don't like seeing their neighbors. So it's these trees actually getting removed are actually hitting people pretty like personally, So you got to be kind of delicate of that situation, and that's why I enjoy doing them in the winter, because I can go over all the growth, their lawns, everything, and then by the springtime, besides the trees being gone, you won't even know I was there.
You won't even know you're there.
And
that's smart.
booming for my business, right? And so that's an attachment, right? And we talk about diversification, trying to figure out things to do. That attachment was quite pricey. I'm sure you're well aware. There, but it opened me up to doing all this work in the wintertime. I don't do a lot of it in the summertime, mostly because we're doing excavation stuff. But it definitely made that T650 very purposeful in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And now I'm not out there fighting with all the snowplow guys. I'm out there doing trees, making a little bit more money.
And if you like dictate the terms of tree removal to the months of October through December, and you just tell your clients this is when we do it, and here's the 7 reasons why, they'll say okay.
Yeah, and actually more often than not, like I said, getting the trees, people are pretty private here. That's why they moved to this area, this state. They see all this dead, right? And I think there's always a false hope that they'd come back to life. But then everybody finally realizes that, okay, this isn't working. And so we're removing them. And then once it's all cleaned up and gone and we start getting some vegetation and some sunlight back into the soils and the natural grasses start coming back, they're like, this is actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty beautiful. Not looking at a bunch of dead trees. So it's been unique. It's been fun. And that was actually when I bought my T650, that was in 21 Thanksgiving time. And I bought that machine knowing that it was going to sit all winter long. And a friend of mine actually owned that tree shear that I bought. And I need to give him a lot of credit, because without him, with what he did, I don't know if I would be where I'm at right now. And it was such a small gesture, but it was probably the biggest impact, which is kind of unique. He did some work for a gentleman that owned this tree shear as some mechanic work, and that gentleman passed away. So the only payment that he got was that tree shear that he was working on. And he didn't own a skid steer, and he sat on this thing for years. And we were BSing one day, and he's like, "Man, I got this tree shear thing. I don't know if it'll work for you. I don't know. I know you're trying to start up doing what you're doing. Why don't you go borrow it? And if it works out for you, make me an offer on it." And so I snagged it from him, went and did some work with it. And I was like, "Here's my offer on it." And he's like, "Sweet." Worked out great for both of us. But that's the reason why my skid steer was able to work that winter instead of waiting until spring. And like I said, that I don't know where the business would be if it wasn't for that decision, that move, that hospitality that he showed. And it wasn't one of those, I need money tomorrow. He's like, just pay me whenever. Just like, right. I know you're good for it. Just make this thing work. If it works, sweet. Just sitting around my house. And life-changing, actually, for the business.
It's amazing how a gesture that the person that gives it doesn't even recognize it means anything, let alone the magnitude of it and the impact it makes on somebody like you.
Yeah, it was that was awesome. And so like I'm truly blessed with being able to know people like him that believed in the business and whatnot. And he's actually a screen print guy. He does decals and all that stuff. So he does all my logos. He didn't design it. Me and a third party designed it. And then, but he does all the screen printing. He does all the logos on my gear. He does all the logos on my trucks. He does all my yard signs. I had a 4x8 sign that was all timber framed at my pit. It looked awesome. We had a massive windstorm and it actually came down. And but he did all of it for me. And so it's a pretty good relationship that we have.
Awesome. I have to ask you real quick. So we just partnered with a company to provide print services through Skid Steer Nation's website. So you can order yard signs, brochures, business cards, and all that. What kind of value have you gotten out of having yard signs up in Alaska?
I think I've had a lot of good value out of it. Mostly, and the reason why I say that is I've had a couple contractors call me and say, "Hey, where did you get those yard signs?" So obviously something's working in the background if they've reached out to me to find out where I'm buying them. And and to me, does it give me more work? when I ask people every time they call me, how'd you hear about me? I've never once had somebody say, oh, it's your yard sign. Actually, I've had more people take pictures of my logo on my dump truck than anything. And, but I think it heightens the professionalism. You have a nice clean cut sign. If you care about having a small sign posted up and it looks good, I think that shows the quality of work that you do. And business cards. I spent a lot of time on my business cards. They look nice. Paid a little bit more money for the rounded corners, the glossy finish. I've had more comments about people or from people about my business cards than anything. They're like, man, this is a really nice business card. And then my turnaround to that is like, if I'm going to take the time for the little details to make that business card as nice as it is, can you imagine what I could do for your project?
I
And
love that you tie that
boom.
into your work, man. That's such a smart move.
Yeah. And so like everything that people touch, see, feel, smell, even like if you have a bunch of equipment that just smells like it's burning down all the time, or people realize that they use their senses, right? And so I put a lot of focus on all that little stuff, and it's paid dividends.
That's awesome.
Like I said, that little 5-cent business card has just been amazing. And it shows everything, right? The front of it, I make it's nice. It's just straight up my logo, and that's it on the front. Back side of it is just shows all my listed of my services, my business license number, all my contact information, all the services provided, and clean cut. Clean cut. The business cards are like the same colors. I'm trying to keep all my gear, so everything kind of works together and meshes. We're still working on the gear, getting it all transitioned to the right colors and all that stuff, but yeah, that's the goal. That's the big focus, right? Just
It is. It's a process. You can't get it all done in a day. And as an owner of a company, you always want it done in a week, and it's going to take a year. But just keep making progress.
Yeah, and so like for this year, like big investments that I did. Actually, it wasn't a huge investment in the scheme of things. Like I bought my own 185 air compressor, my own industrial blasters. That way, when we are slower in the wintertime, it's like, all right, guys, let's blast some trailers, let's paint them, and let's get them looking sharp, get new decals on them, chains rubbing on, all the reflective tape, stuff like that. Let's just junkyard that, put some fresh tape. It's amazing what some fresh DOT tape on a trailer will do.
Night and day difference.
Yeah, I mean, $100 or whatever,
Who knows, Justin? If you guys don't mind doing the work, maybe you could just start calling all the other contractors in your area saying, how's your trailers? Drop them off for the winter. We'll take care of them before spring.
Take care of it. Yeah, that's another way to make money, right? And so yeah, I mean, everything's going pretty good, I think. Numbers wise, I get the question all the time, when are you going to leave the refinery? And I get that a lot, actually, and more so this year than anything. And truthfully, I don't see myself leaving the refinery.
How many years do you have in? 20, you said?
I got 20 in the oil and gas industry. I'm 10 at the refinery. If I can put 10 more years in there, even 12, it'll be good. So I think I'm gonna have to stick it out.
Well, and honestly, the goal of a business owner should not be to be in the machine 40 hours a week. Right.
Yeah.
It's like and because you can't be, you're approaching it as an owner leadership role, going, I need the right guy for this. And if I'm going to give him the keys to the building, I need to trust him with the project. And I think if you just keep doing that, you're going to develop those two guys into leaders, and then you can eventually get one or two more. And by the time you get 10, 12 years from now, you'll have it exactly the size you want it, whether it's 1 crew, 2 crews, 3 crews. Yep. And then you'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to go manage my business now that I retired from the refinery.
Yeah. And so I'm in a unique situation with that, right? I mean, 99% of the people don't have a refinery job. So I can't walk away from it just for the health benefits alone. I got a young family. I got a 8-year-old and a 4-year-old that love the equipment just as much as I do. And that's another reason too, that I wanted to start the business also, is with all this craziness, man, I want to keep an eye on them as long as I can. And if I can keep them working for me, I can keep tabs on them. I can make some money to buy their phones or whatever they want, and that's my goal. Maybe the ultimate goal for a dad, right, is to be able to transition and let your kids take it over.
I mean, I think that's part of the vision for anyone that starts, especially excavation companies. You hear about it all the time. like leaving their legacy and like being able to pass that down and make it a generational business.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, I didn't grow up in like a poor family by any means. But we weren't like super high class either. And when my folks passed away, they didn't have anything, right? And I kind of look at back on that, man, I want to change the chapter a little bit for my kids. I want to make sure that they're set up. So I'm working really hard now to help my kids in the future to have a better stepping stone than what I did. And so the only way I know how to do that is just pedal the metal and just work hard. And and uh, and I'm passionate about this too. It gives me some satisfaction at the end of the day, which I think everybody needs to do. It's not a job when you love it, and
Right.
I love this stuff. It's great, um, and just with that mentality, um, I think that'll take my business far if you have the passion and you can keep carrying it. And so, a 100-hour week might sound like a lot to most people, which it is a lot, but for me, it's like I'm just getting started. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's my every week is that for me. It's been like that for 10 years,
It's your normal.
And I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, right? Years ago, I like to restore cars when I had free time. And so the pay for some of my restoration projects, I'm a GM guy at heart, but I do some Opar stuff too. And so I'd buy and sell used Chevy pickups, and I'd part them out, make extra cash to help pay for my restoration projects and stuff. So the whole entrepreneurial thing has always been I've always figured out a way to make that little side buck to make things work. And so it's kind of neat. It's fun.
Yeah, I really think the word entrepreneurial, I think it's overused in today's society. Like, I mean, they have entrepreneurial classes at college. If that's not the largest oxymoronic thing I've ever, like, how are you going to teach somebody to be an entrepreneur? Like, you can teach them the
Yeah.
basics of owning a business or of accounting, but you can't teach them to want it.
It's funny that you say that, because I never thought about it like that until you said it like that. And I was like, that clicked. I was like, yeah, you're right. It's weird. It's mind blowing. And but you got to have it, right? There's some people that have that entrepreneurial spirit, like in their heart. And then there's a lot of people that don't. They just want to, hit that 9 to 5 and whatnot. And I'm just not the 9 to 5 guy. I want to do better, right? And the only way I know how to do better is just work hard.
I'll tell you what,
And
Justin, that's one of probably the biggest things that I probably still struggle with it a little bit today. But when I go to like look to hire or invest time into like a team member, like I always have that fear, like what's stopping him from taking all the knowledge I give him and then going and starting his own business? Because I'm an entrepreneur.
I had that
always
happen to me.
forget that people aren't always built that way.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that don't like to stress, right? I mean, good buddy of mine, he wanted to do some excavation work and stuff, and we kind of did this, 15 years ago, I think now, together a little bit, kind of getting things going. And he wanted to do a legitimate business, and I stepped back and I said, man, I value my friendship a lot more than our business. And so I stepped back, but I was always the client kind of guy. I'd go out and find the clients, get the jobs, talk, and all that stuff. He was not, and he went out on his own for a year and a half, and he's like, I just can't deal with people. And so that's when I kind of noticed that yeah, it's definitely a different mindset. You could be the best operator in the world, but if you can't deal with clients or have the ability to make decisions on the fly and be comfortable with them, if you don't know the office stuff and the business numbers, it doesn't matter if you're the best operator in the world. Your business won't succeed. And so I try to put a focus on growing the business and learning the numbers and understanding. If I don't know the numbers, I'm going to ask somebody that can help me figure it out.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway. Just don't be afraid to ask for help.
You have to ask. And I've gotten a lot, like nobody's come back. I can't believe you didn't know that. I mean, I'm sorry, my cell phone mount's coming unstuck.
Oh, you're good, man.
And I've never had anybody say, man, that's a dumb question, or I can't believe you didn't know that getting in the business. They've always been like, way to go. Here's how I do it. I don't know if it's the right way, but this is the way I understand it and how I do it. Here's some tips. Here's some takeaways. And they've been really supportive about it, you know. Another thing I try to do too is I try to work with my competition. It's just hard to get the competition to work with you, which is, it's like there's enough work for everybody. I don't get it. I think you're stronger as a bigger team
You
than
are.
when you can collaborate, but I don't know how to break that mold. I don't know how to do that, because it's like we kind of all do the same thing, so everybody takes it personal, you know. It's like a bidding war and something, and I don't understand that. It's like maybe I'm in a different spot, because it's like if I had to, I got something else I can go back to, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I,
There's no secret answer to how to make that work. I mean, I got nothing
no, it's
for you
like
on
I can
that
buy
because
them lunch, I can I can talk to them, BS with them, share whatever with them, and at the end of the day, it's like it never comes back to a phone call like, hey, can you help me out,
yeah,
you know. And so it's just weird. I don't know.
well,
So
it's no different than
sometimes it
going
feels like a
fishing
little
and the guy always says, "Yeah, I caught it on a pumpkin seed 6-inch lizard." No, he didn't.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if I could figure out a way to break that mold. And like I said, I think everybody's just super competitive, and I'm not a very competitive person by nature. I think that's kind of like one of my saving graces. Because when you're extremely competitive, it changes your judgment on things to do, right? Sometimes you just want to win at all costs,
Yeah,
and I've
you
just learned
make
that.
irrational decisions
Yeah,
based on emotion
yeah.
and
And I
not
try to take
data.
my emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to go off the data, and that's one thing I wanted to reach out to you about. Is I'm old school with like spreadsheets, and like, and we're talking like Excel. Like I had to pay a guy to make the Excel sheet. I'm not a computer guy at any means, you know. But that's how I do all my estimations and whatnot. Then I make it a PDF and I email out to clients, and then it gets kind of lost sometimes. Sometimes it goes to their junk box or whatever, you know. It worked for me. Now that we're expanding the business, I am struggling on the technology side, um, with, especially with me being removed for half the month. I was looking at doing like some CRM software stuff. Um, the problem is there's 100 different avenues you can go down. But I don't know where to go with it. I'm kind of hung up on that CRM software stuff. I'm kind of, what I'm wanting to do is, like, I'm a QuickBooks guy. It's what we have, so I'm stuck with it. So I need something that interlocks with that. But my thought process was, if I had two iPads, one for me and one for the guys, I can go out to the job, take the pictures that I need, put it into a job bank, and then the guys can log in. They can do their time clock, because we do it all on our phones, you know, the time clocks and stuff. They can do that. They can open up the job. They can see the pictures of the job. I can actually, if I could draw on the job pictures, you know, of what needs to be laid out or whatnot, or circle things or whatnot. Write notes, type notes, put in comment sections. That way the guys can communicate, and they have their own iPad where we don't have to keep transferring it back and forth. That's kind of where I want to go with it, and then have the CRM side of it, you know, to keep up with customer relations and try to
Yeah.
get that
So when you get into
working. So
like
I'm
the
struggling.
digital, like, there's so many different tools that vary in complexity and cost and features. I know, like with guys that were making handwritten or spreadsheet estimates, we'd say, like, hey, let's just get used to using a technology. Go get Joist. It's 12 back then. It was $12 a month. You can now email it. You can see when they open it. You can add it just looks like you're a freaking business. And then what happens
Yeah.
is those
So
guys
that's
they outgrow Joist, right? Like Joist to me is great if you're just a one man solo operation. If you're just starting out, you're watching all your pennies, but then you kind of outgrow it because it's not really a CRM. So then
hmm
what, like we've talked to a bunch of different companies, and actually, I mean, I want a disclaimer, like we've partnered with Jobber because they do a great job of everything you need,
hmm
especially if you're 2 million or less a year in business.
Yeah.
you know.
So Jobber is on the top of my list. I'm just not sure. What I don't like about it is like, yeah, sign up for the free trial and all that stuff. Well, it takes a lot of time to sign up for the free trial, get your jobs going and all that stuff. So it almost kind of locks you in,
It
because you don't
does.
want to do it twice.
And like I've
And
been through this process with numerous guys in the past where they're hesitant to do it because it's only 14 days. How much can you really learn about it in 14 days? And then
me, it
a
would be
month.
7 days.
Oh, I got 14 for you and
Well,
20%
14
off.
days. Well, it's 14 days, but I'm working a week and
But
week
you're
schedule.
working a week away. Yeah. See, it's for you, it's
So
7
it's like,
days. But
yeah.
what we
So
find
if they
is
had
that
a
then
month long,
at 30 days, they're kind of complaining about it because they still don't get it all. But then at 45 to 60 days, they go, I'm so glad I did this because it just manages so many
yeah.
other aspects of the business.
Yeah. And so as we grow, actually, that's currently what my project is right now is getting into a software based something like that. The other mistake that one of the biggest mistakes I've made to date with my business is it's a small thing, but it's also the biggest thing, is using my personal cell phone number for the business. I really wish that I never did that, because I've had my phone number for 25 years or something like that, right? And I should have put a little bit more thought into that, because if I ever want to in the future sell my business,
Well,
I'm
you
giving
can,
up my phone number.
but Justin, you can transition at any time. So just go,
Yeah.
and here's what I recommend. It's like a VoIP or a VPN phone number, which is basically voice over internet, voice over IP. So like, um, call central, call rail, ring central, go to meeting, and there's 17 other companies out there. So it's an internet based phone number. So like our business phone number for Skid Steer Nation runs on an app. So I have it on my computer, I have it
Mm-hmm.
on my iPad, I have it on my phone. Every team member has it on their computer. We can answer it worldwide. I can transfer numbers between two people. It just runs like an actual phone system, but I'm not tied to having a phone in an actual office. Then I
Mm-hmm.
can open the app
So
to
like,
call and it calls from my business phone number.
so like my business phone number is my cell phone number,
Switch it.
and
People will still call your cell phone for the next year or so because that's what they're accustomed to. But all of your signage will change, your logos will change, your social media accounts, your Google, and just within a year or two, that phone will get a majority of the phone calls. It's going to be just a slow
yeah, and
process, but and don't force it.
but
Just
it's that transition that's a little scary, right?
well, but
Is
if you
that
got your
transition when you
phone with an app on the phone, so it's still the same one phone to answer either
yeah.
phone. And that's what I'm getting at, right? So like, I call customers all the time, like, well, who's this? I'm like, it's Ryan from Skid Steer Nation. Like, oh, I didn't recognize the phone number. I'm like, oh shit, I called you from my phone, not from the bit. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and that makes sense, and it's part of that technology thing too. I'm
but if you've got like that guy that you trust with your business, he could be answering. You
exactly.
could give him a script and pre-qualifying, like in the tone, and that week that you're at the refinery, he could at least be collecting data and then sending you a text or an email or putting it in Jobber. And then every night you can
Yeah.
go through and calculate the day and make your plan. And it just connects the team.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I want. I want they're not going to know the numbers obviously, but I want my team to feel like the family, right? Like, and that's my newest guy that I just hired. He said, "Man, this is you treat us amazingly. You got a great work atmosphere. You're not breathing over our necks all the time, telling us should have did this, should have did that, don't do that." He's like, "Just let us roll, and these guys show up every morning early for me. I mean, both these guys show up 20 minutes to 30 minutes early every day for work. It's crazy. Usually I'm the guy that rolls in 5 minutes
It's
late, and 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 it's just interesting. And they work late for me. They work 12, 14 hours a day for me, and they're smiling, happy. Like I'm buying a barbecue just to take on job sites with us so we can have lunch, and grill up some steaks or something.
Love it.
It's just the small little things. I've learned that these small things are worth everything. If I can keep them busy during the winter or employed during the winter, if I can keep them happy and they enjoy coming to work every day, these guys would almost do anything for you. right?
Yeah.
You show them respect, you treat them well, they'll do anything for you. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my guys is treat them exactly. I want to treat them better than other employers, you know, and
And
because I can't
the
offer the
easiest
401ks, I can't offer the
and
stuff like that,
actually, I
right?
mean, actually, I mean, you're not too far off from being able to offer it because the 401k is just a managed retirement fund. It doesn't mean that you
Yeah,
have to match any money into that fund. You could still provide them. We've done a lot of talk with business owners that were growing and they're hitting that 750, 1.5 million and then up range, but I'm like, as your team grows, like teach them new things. So bring in a financial advisor to have a lunch and teach him about the importance of
yeah.
saving for retirement. Like you don't have to do anything other than just open the light to show these guys, hey, $50 a week over 30 years plus compounding interest is a lot of money.
It's a ton of money, you know.
Right.
And I
Like,
mean,
but like,
with
but
my
you've never
customers,
been taught that. Right. So it's just about investing in them so that they can become better people, better,
yeah,
more security for their
and
family. It doesn't mean that you have to provide it. You just have to connect the
just
two.
being able to offer, just
Right.
being able to offer.
Man, he really
And
cares
so
about
that's
me
what
and
we're
my
working
family. He
towards.
taught me how to save for retirement and hooked me up with a financial advisor because these guys are usually scared to death. Like they don't even know who to call. Like, cause they don't want to ask stupid questions. Right.
Yep.
So if you can
Yeah,
remove that
I'm a big
fear,
fan.
that's why we're
I'm
entrepreneurs.
a
'Cause we're
big
not
fan of
afraid to look
asking stupid
stupid.
questions. You know, and it's interesting, man. Like I never thought I'd be in the place that I am. I mean, our growth revenue right now is amazing. We're on average right now, we're probably hitting a 30% a year growth,
That's huge.
which is, I mean, that's going to taper back for sure now that we got a little bit higher overhead. Um, but if my target's about the 18%, 20% right there. If I can hit that every year, I'll be pretty happy.
And that will reach a point that
The
it
numbers that we're doing,
plateaus.
yeah, I mean, they all do
When
for
you get into
sure.
be a 10-year-old business, you can't expect 20% growth annually.
No, no, and so I'm kind of hoping that, with, like I said, with our numbers and stuff, especially with me only being able to do it half time, and then I took most of the winter off this last year because I was by myself. So we did the family vacation stuff like that, and so the shop just kind of ran solo for a while, you know, and we took a couple months off, and but the numbers are working towards to be pretty decent. But I don't want to get over my head with, you know, like when I see these guys with all these equipment payments, and like I see that there's like a new guy in town. He's driving an F450 Platinum with his decals on the sides, pulling a brand new skid steer. I was like, dude, you're $250,000 deep into just that little setup. You're rolling on the highway to look cool.
Yeah.
What the ROI on your Platinum F450 is zero. You know, I mean,
Negative 10.
I just don't. My Dodge is a 2012 5500 work truck. I mean, it's no frills. It's got cruise control. I think that's about it. And but it hauls a ton. It works a lot. It's got, I think I bought it with 90,000 miles on it. It plows snow. It hauls all the gear, hauls all the fuel. So this truck's just super universal, right? I don't care if it's scratched. I don't care if, or whatnot. So that's the kind of things I look for is that multi-purpose vehicle. And I'm not going to drive a Platinum Ford to go
No.
show off, basically, And I see that kind of stuff more often than not. It's crazy, especially in our small little town.
That's what those roofing companies that don't actually have any employees drive.
Yeah, it's crazy because like we call it the Tri-City area. It's Kenai, Soldotna, and Nikiski, and they're on average probably 30-mile diameter, radius. I mean, and there's probably only about 25 to 30,000 people in that little niche area, right? And so there's 25, 30 excavation landscape guys now, right, in this 30,000 people population doing it for 4 months a year. And so it's like extremely flooded. But we've had a lot of success with the high quality of work, right? People are tired of the people that say, yeah, we can come put in a lawn, and they just spread some topsoil with a bucket on their skid steer, right? I bought, invested in the attachments that I need, Harley rakes, landscape rakes, um, the hydro seeders. I mean, I've invested a lot of money into having the proper gear to do it. And it's elevating our business to a whole new level of, okay, maybe we don't do as many projects as all these other guys, but my profit margin is better and I don't have to worry about the client not paying.
And those are the numbers, right? One, not every customer is the right customer for you. And stop comparing yourself to everybody else. If your profit margins are exactly where they need to be and you're growing at a percentage rate you need to be, put the blinders on,
Yes.
man, and just cut out the outside noise.
Yeah. And just go to work,
Yeah.
and it's been fun. And then like we do underground sprinklers and stuff too, which I mean you wouldn't think from an excavation side, how that would tie in. But my thought process is we're there putting in a lawn on a lot of stuff. Why don't we upsell and try to sell them a sprinkler system at the same time? That's the time to do it. And so we haven't installed a lot this year. I haven't marketed it because it does take a lot of time.
I'd be trenching downspouts too.
But we do. Yeah, we do that a lot. We do that. A lot of people, they just have the gutter guys come out and they just downspout them right to their driveway. And I was like, man, I can't stand that.
Yeah.
It drives me insane seeing water going through my driveway. So we do upsell quite a bit of doing like the French drains and stuff and drainage tiles. We've noticed too, a lot of people like contractors, we have a lot of clay here. I'm not sure what your soil conditions are, but we have a lot of clay, and it's like down like Texas and stuff like that. They have like I call it like a structural clay. I guess it's like a hard pan. Up here, you put water on it, it's like goo, and it doesn't drain at all. So we've noticed a lot of contractors are like backfilling houses with that stuff, and it's just, oh man, it's creating major drainage issues and stuff like that. So we do a lot of foundation dig ups, and we're doing a lot of drain tile work around houses and stuff. And then that's when I try to upsell, doing downspouts and stuff. We're there anyways. It's not hard to do it. And
no, and that's
but
the
I see that
hardest
a lot.
part, right? That's the hardest part, is actually getting on the customer's property.
Yeah.
And if you can get one out of every 10 to fight for an upsell, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a lot of issues with septics around here too, because most people live on, they're pretty rural, so they have their own wells and septics. We've had so much rain and snow the last couple of years that their conventional septic systems are now flooding, and the water can't leach. So they're having to do raised bed septics and stuff like that, which those are big jobs. I mean, up here, I don't know what they run down there, but up here, they're between 30 to 50,000 for a raised bed system. And so those are pretty popular in my area right now. So that's a challenge, but I'm kind of working towards, for my business, I do septics, but I'm more of the new guy with septics. I like doing the brand new septics. I don't like doing the used ones.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing the full site preps. I like doing the start to finish. My rough grade is better than most dirt guys' finish grades, and and I think it plays hand in hand because of the landscaping side. So like a lot of the just excavation guys, they go in there and I call it hoe chuck, and they just go out there and hoe chuck and get things done. And it's terrible. The finish work is terrible. Well, me, I have the end in mind because the landscaping side. So I'm sitting there and I do all my house dig outs and stuff like that, just like I would a finished landscape job.
Yeah, because you're looking at the big picture. You're going to be touching that again. You're not done with the project.
Yeah. Yeah. So like everything we do is about the highest quality standard I could possibly get. That when people drive by too, right? There's my yard sign there, and if it looks like you just had a kid in a sandbox throwing dirt everywhere, it's not really the image I want. I want people, man, that's organized, clean, no garbage. The piles are stacked decently. The edges are cut and tapered. There's access to the bottom so the concrete guys can do their footers. We're doing a job here actually tomorrow we're going to start doing another house dig, and we're getting a driveway put in because concrete's going to be there on Monday. So, all the concrete trucks, we got to make sure the driveway is solid and all the materials consolidated and organized neatly because there's going to be a lot of activity, right? So it's like I want things smooth. I don't want people tripping on stuff. I don't want trucks getting stuck. I don't, it's just all those small little details that don't seem like much, but at the end of the job, they're huge. And a lot of people don't even take notice of it.
Yeah. I mean, I tell guys, I'm like, I don't care if you're a one-man operation and you've got a crew of 2 or whatever, like have a little tailgate talk in the morning, even if it's just with yourself, so you can visualize and plan
Mm-hmm.
and prep the day. Because if you just
Yeah.
get out with your head
My
down
wife makes,
working, shit will pop up all the way around you that were easily avoidable.
mm-hmm. My wife actually makes fun of me because like some of my best thinking is like when I'm taking a shower, right? I'm taking a shower. It's quiet. It's peaceful. And I just sit there and I just brainstorm about opportunity, what I'm going to do that day, how I'm going to do it. I write down like an order, like for instance, if I have 4 or 5 bids to do, but I need to dump truck at this spot and I need all this, I mentally make that checklist of organization and how to make every move count to where it's like, okay, if I go here, then I can hop over and do that bid because it's a mile away or whatever. It's that mental list and I get that going in the morning, and so that's where I start, right? My
And then
wife
here's
makes
the
fun of me
crazy thing,
about
right,
it.
Justin? Because you make that list, mentally, you're like, boom, I just won. I figured out the puzzle. And now you're jazzed up to go attack the day. And you haven't even done any work yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It sets the day. And then what's interesting too is my work schedule at the refinery when I'm on, because I do day shift for a week and then I'm off for a week, then I do night shift for a week. So I do this rotational. So on my day shifts, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work and be there by, it's a 30-minute drive. So I got to be there at 5. And so it's trains my body to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I might like when I'm off, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm sitting there doing research or doing whatever, for that day's project. Most people are still in bed, and I'm sitting here thinking about it when I'm doing. When I'm on night shift, it's the kind of the opposite, right? It gives me time to do my bids and stuff before work because I get up about noon, or I can go on a job, work for 4 or 5 hours, go do something, make sure the guys are good, and then it just gives me that time to do my mental checklist. And I always have a notebook with me. I'm always writing stuff down or whatever, and I've landed more jobs by being able to give a bid right then in that moment.
It's a
And
huge
so I've learned that that's huge.
speed wins, man.
Yeah. So like I'll write it down and I'll tell them, I said, this is kind of an unprofessional way, but here's my notebook, here, piece of paper, that I write your bid on. I will email you a formal bid that would need to be responded to because that's kind of my contractual agreement that we're going to move
Right.
forward. But here's the numbers. The numbers aren't going to change. It's just handwritten out right now. This is the number you're going to need. And then I take that and I go home at night. I do the estimate. And then that saved me too, because there's times when I get home, it's like, man, I really don't want to be on the computer tonight. So I'll go, sit down and hang out with the family a little bit. It's like, I didn't get that bid out, but they had the number in their hand already. So it's kind of twofold where it works. And I found that kind of helps me out a little bit, but I need, like I said, I need to move into the technology. I need to get moving in that direction.
Yeah. We talked to a guy who
I
actually
think that's
built a spreadsheet so he could, like, for driveways. That's all he basically did. And based on width, length, material, like, and he could shoot a price on the initial phone call and he'll be like, I'll honor it because, like, it's gravel and grading. It's, I don't care if you're a little off. I'm still going to make money.
So like the other interesting thing is I work with some paving crews and stuff like that, doing some subgrade work and stuff for them, pre-preps and whatnot, and concrete guys. And our frost line here and where we're at is about 42 inches. That's what they consider our frost line. So I go 48, just give me a little window of cushion, right? And then I was talking to a contractor that was doing some paving prep, and his number was significantly different than mine. He was maybe a third less than me on the price. And so I went and asked him, I said, hey, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get your number? Like, how'd you get to that point? He said, well, I figured my dig depth at X amount of dollars per square foot. And I don't do a square foot number. I don't like doing things by square foot. and his dig depth was only 2 feet. Well, when you're doing paving and concrete work, if you got any clays or any expansive soils within your frost line, you're going to heave, you know? So like in my mind, I'm like, you kind of nailed them on 2 foot of dig out. Customers thinking they're getting a quality job, but chances are you're not even a
They're going
couple
to pay
years from now,
twice
your
for that
driveway's going
job
to either sink.
over the lifespan of it.
And so that clicked in my head. And I asked him the question. I said, well, why do you only go 2 feet? He said, oh, that's just what we've always done. That was his answer. He didn't have any reasoning why. Then I explained to him, I said, this is why I go 4 feet. This is my dig out. If you're not going to pave or anything like that, I would probably want to go 4 feet. That's a lot of money to do paving and concrete work. Why would you skimp out on that?
Yeah.
On that dirt, you know? And so that I took and I started educating my clients more. And we do hydro seeds also on our new lawns. We do a lot of hydro seed work and stuff. And I run a lot higher quality product in mine than most. And so what I ended up doing is learning. I had to learn to educate my clients. And once I educated them, it's huge because then it opens up. It's not just educating them, it's that personal relationship at that point too. Right. They're like, oh, this guy actually wants to take time and meet with me and talk with me and just whatever, you know, and educate me on this stuff. And
I say it all the
it's
time,
helped out a lot.
I say it all the time. It's the law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
You give them education and they feel obligated to give you something in return, and i.e. the project.
Yeah. And that's why I don't like that one cost. I'll do it for X amount of dollars and nothing listed. And then also the other thing that helps me out I
got to interrupt you on that. I got to interrupt you on that. When I say the one cost bid pricing, I just mean give them one number. I do not mean skimp out on the line items. Just don't put a price on the line items. Like you want to lay it all out so they can see every step and all the value you provide. But they shouldn't have to get a calculator out to check your numbers or wonder how many days it's like. They should be like, all right, here's my problem. Here's how he's going to fix it. And he's going to do it for $7,000. I think that's a bargain. Like that's
so like right now I got I think 37 jobs on the books right now, which is phenomenal, right? For in my area, that's
huge.
Pretty good. And so when I break out my bids and my estimates, it's not just for the client, it's for me too, because I can't remember like a bid I did 2 months ago. I can't remember the materials and all that stuff. So I can look at that one bid sheet that I have and be like, okay, this is 3 days worth of work. This is how many tons of material I'm going to need of this. This is how much truck time I booked for. So it's actually a reminder for me too of that job and all the cost breakdown. And so that kind of helps me out, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, especially if you're bidding out that far, like you've got to have those notes on all those projects so you can refresh and review it. But
like I booked up 90% of my season this year last fall, which is
I'm assuming awesome. That your area, because it's such a short work window, people plan a little farther ahead than they do down in the lower 48 because they know if you're booked up for the year, they're screwed. So people probably plan.
And that's the other thing is I try to go and like if you found a contractor in our area, no, I can't speak for any other area but ours, but if you found a contractor that you're talking to me today on a Friday and they say they can be here on Monday, you really want that contractor?
Amen.
I mean, think about it a little bit. And like we just had a guy pop up on our Facebook pages around here that's offering tree cutting services for like no money, like zero money. And he's like, I can do it cheaper than anybody else. And the first thing I said, are you licensed, bonded, and insured? Do you have any credentials? And he's like, I just like doing it for the pleasure of my community. I was like, well, that's going to be sweet when the homeowner's stuck with a bill because you planted a tree across their car or their house.
Right.
You know, and those are the kind of things that I get tired of fighting all the time because it's just saturating the market. And then everybody's like, well, Joe Blow will do it for $50 and you're $100. Like, I'm going to go with him, you know?
Cool. Pay Joe Blow $50. And then in 2 months, call me up and I'm going to charge you $200 because I need to fix his work. And it's going to take me twice as long.
How do you feel about fuel surcharges and mobilization fees?
Build it into your price. Nobody likes extra line items.
I like that. That's exactly where I've been going with it.
I'm
I
telling
see
you,
that.
man,
I
they
actually
want
had
to
a.
they want to know what it's going to cost to solve their problem. Just get like one
Mhm.
number.
Yeah, I see it. Actually, what was really upsetting with me, I had a plumbing issue at my house with my boiler. The plumbing shop is 2.5 miles away. They charge a 30% fuel surcharge tax. My bill is like $1,100. I mean, you could do the math. I was like, dude, a fuel surcharge, 30% on this, you drove 3 miles.
Yeah.
And he's like, it is what it is.
Yeah, they just found a way they can make more money, and you can't. I mean, you need it, right? But if
Yeah.
you're in business, it's not a necessity. I mean, there's 30 people in your area doing your job. There's typically 50
Mhm.
restaurants in a town. Like, you don't have to go to that one place. So the harder you make it, or the more friction you add, the less customers you're going to end
Mhm.
up with. Like
Exactly.
I was in the restaurant industry forever, and like my friends, I go to their restaurants, and I'm like, Billy, why in God's green earth do you list a credit card processing fee? He's like, well, I got to pay that fee. I'm just passing it along. I'm like, why don't you just raise the price on all your food 5%, which actually makes you a 1.5% profit above the credit card processing fee, and then promote that you don't do a credit card processing fee.
So I understand where you're at with that. I really do. I do charge the 3%. And here's the reason why. I don't like credit cards. Um, the fees alone and stuff. Well, and that's the difference, right? I'm not doing a bunch of small transactions. I'm doing,
The transaction is
big,
irrelevant.
big.
It's actually better to do a
Well,
large one than it is small ones.
yeah, but 3% of 15,000 versus 3% of 1,000, right?
Yeah, but he's going to
Is
do over
a huge
15,000
nut.
over the course of a month. So the numbers, but he's paying 30 cents for the transaction plus the 3% so it's actually less expensive to do one. But I'm not saying to not charge the 3%. I'm just saying don't line it out as a line item.
Yeah. So what I do with that is I always ask, is it a cash check card? And if they say credit card, it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to add 3% onto this. And I understand your point about adding that credit card processing fee, but I'm not turning that many transactions either. So at the end of the year, I'm probably doing 150 transactions for the whole year. But they're just high dollar amount, right? High. And what did it for me is when I got my statement back, and on one job, the credit card fee was big enough to cover all the fuel for one day. And it was like a 400 and some odd dollar. And I was just
Just
like, whew.
Justin, everything we sell is with a credit card.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we're
And
spending an enormous amount of money in credit card processing fees.
I think it's insane what they're. I mean, that's the business I want to get into. It's credit card
Ah,
processing fees.
it's all of it.
I mean,
The whole industry
you
is
know,
rigged.
so I try not to do that. And I go through QuickBooks on my credit card processing fees, and like it still takes days to get paid. I
Yeah.
mean, it's easy to get 7-10 days, right? Like a check. I've had one problem with one check. I had one check bounce, but they resolved it, and that was a little scary. Having
But
a check
again, like
bounce.
you could flip it around, right? Like just build that into your bidding process, that 3% at the bottom. And then when you
Hmm.
present that, when you ask, would you be paying with a check, cash, or credit card? If they say check, but oh, great, I do offer a 3% project discount for cash and checks. And now instead of adding a fee
That
to those paying for it, you're giving something back to the ones that aren't using it.
and that makes more sense because I like morally I wasn't okay with factoring that into my uh, adding it into my day rate because I didn't feel like if you were to pay for cash and then your friend was to pay with card, I didn't feel that it was fair to you to have to absorb part of that cost. What I found too is a lot of people just want those airline miles, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not worth my airline miles. And I think airline miles are getting so expensive nowadays that people are starting to kind of change their thinking on that a little bit of the cost. Actually, with the business, we debated which way to go to in our business for our company card. Um, like personally, we got an airlines card, but for the business, I actually make better doing the cash back, and
Did you go?
because we
Which
run
card
enough
did you go with?
revenue. I'm through Bank of America on that
Okay.
one, and So like it was actually kind of interesting is I had enough cash back rewards on that one. I was able to outfit most of my shop with the hand tools and stuff that I needed to
I
buy.
believe it.
And so I was able to do that. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. If I had airline miles, I don't fly anywhere anyway. So it's like they just sit there and do nothing. So the business is actually getting a benefit by using those. So I highly recommend people look into those options instead of the hype of the
Yeah,
airline
and
miles.
I'm an American Express guy, and I love it because the points are just so universal. I can use them for airlines, I can use them for hotels, rental cars, concerts.
Yeah.
But a lot of business owners and some smart business owners, they've done research, and I find that they always end up with that Capital One Spark card.
Yeah, I have one Capital One card. Man, I had that back in, I think that was my first credit card in high school, or just right out of high school, and I still have it to this day because it's kind of that I want to hold on to it because like my first one ever, right? I
Yeah,
haven't carried a balance on that in 15 years, but I
he
can't let go of it.
he did the Capital One Spark card, and then instead of taking the cash back, because you get different percentages when what you use it for. I'm not versed on it. I'm not a Capital One guy, but he was making enough money off that Capital One Spark card that he lowered everybody's monthly health insurance premium by 50% and gave it all back to his
Wow,
employees.
holy smokes! Yeah, like it took me a while to figure that one out. I'm still trying to figure out how to make my estimating and my jobs go faster and smoother, So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's kind of one. It's not one shoe fits all for sure. It's definitely different. But I just want to. Part of my story is I've seen it a lot. A lot of these guys going out financing all that gear, man. They have to have the shiny. They have to have the new, the bling. Don't do it because and through my career so far, I've went through 3 downturns, right? And if I had a high amount of money in debt, and monthly payments, I should say, um, I don't think I'd survive it.
Yeah.
And financing is so easy nowadays across the board for anything. And just don't get into that trap. You don't want to work for the debt. You want to work to prosper. And well, that's what I want to see people do. And if I can challenge people just a little bit to be a little bit patient, um, save what you can, I mean, and try to be smart. Don't go all, you don't have to have everything brand new right now. Um, and this is coming from a guy that's not very patient. I'm not a very patient person.
The
I've
best
just had to
joke,
learn patience.
the best advice I ever got on patience was actually told to me in the form of a joke. And the
You
old
remember what the
man was
joke was?
just like, "You ever heard the story of the two bulls?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Young bull, old bull, top of the hill." I'm like, "No." He goes, "They're looking down on the field and they see all the heifers down there." Young bull goes, "Let's run down there and bang one of them." And the old bull
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Why don't we walk down there and bang them all?"
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
That's awesome. I'll let me remember that.
he's like, "Just
Yeah.
slow down. Like it's just slow down."
So like that guy I told you was more like a father figure with me that's been pretty successful in his life. He actually pulled me aside here a couple weeks ago and said, because he's been watching my growth and everything, right? He's like I don't understand how you're doing it. He's like, this is phenomenal what you're doing. And I said, well, I don't want to. I'm not a quitter, and I don't want to lose, and I want to succeed. So the only way I know how to do that is work and think and have the drive. And he said, well, right now is the time for patience. And to me, hearing him say that was just kind of a eye opener a little bit. He said, right now you got the equipment, you got a good crew, things are driving, the gears are meshing. Be patient. Don't you don't have to jump off that cliff and keep going and going and buying more stuff and all this stuff. Just stay mellow for a year or two and organically let it grow. And don't force the growth because if you start forcing the growth, um, the challenges arise with your operational costs and it can spiral out
Again,
of control pretty
you
quick.
force it, that's emotional decisions.
Yes. And so I was like, and this is coming from a gentleman that's had his fair share of up and downs for business, and he's done well for himself for sure. But I have a lot of respect for him, and I use him as a kind of as a He's kind of my business entrepreneur coach, I
Yeah.
should say, and I mean, he knows everything about my business, about the numbers and everything. And because for him to give me the best advice possible, he needs to know the information. I can't just be like, well, I think I'm going to buy this and do this. Sometimes he's the guy that's the voice of reason. Maybe you should like pull the throttle stick back a little bit,
Yeah.
And so sometimes you need that person, right, to be like, yeah, go for it, do it, don't do it.
This is the shitty part about being a business owner, because a majority of our friends and family are not business owners. So it's very hard to find somebody to give you the truth. Like, it's
Yeah,
easy to
and
find
he's
someone to
brutally
pat you on
honest.
the back and say, "Hey man, you're killing it. Great job. Keep going." But
Yep.
nobody tells you the truth.
Yeah, and you need somebody. So it's true what they always say, right? You need to follow or be around the people that you want to be like, right? If I wanted to be a guy that worked at McDonald's or whatever, go hang out with that group of people. Nothing against that. It's just those are the people you need to surround yourself with. If you want to be into the business savvy world or the excavation world or whatever business, you need to go find that group of people and hang out and take advice from them, because those are the ones with the expertise in that field that you want to be in. Why wouldn't you take that free knowledge, right? That's probably the best and the cheapest education one could get, is just going out and talking to the people in that industry you want to be part of.
Telling you, Justin, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and if you're the smartest person in the room,
Exactly.
you're in the wrong room.
Exactly. And then you can't think that you know everything. You got to go in with an open mind on every single job, everything that you do, open mind, because you can have 2 jobs right next door to each other, same thing. I guarantee you there's going to be a difference in them. There's never 2 jobs the same.
The moment you
That's
go
why I like the square
underground,
foot price.
the moment you go underground, it's always different.
Yeah. That's why I don't do the square foot price, right? Is like, I don't know how you do a full dig out on anything by a square foot price. I just don't get it. I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. You might win a few times, but your profit margin's either not going to be very good, or you're going to be just makes you want to do half-ass work because you're tight on the money, right? I'll be honest. There's been a couple jobs where I way underbid, and I went back to the client and said, hey, just want you to know that we can't afford to do any add-ons or anything like that. We're over our allotment, but I will honor the price that I told you, even though it's costing me more money. Like, I did one job, I bid it for 5 days, and it took us. No, actually, I take that back. I bid it for 3 days, and it took us 8. And the client called me and said, "Hey, man, you brought in some more gear and stuff like that to do this job. Is this going to cost me any more money?" I said, "It's on me, man. Like, that was my mistake." And so you're welcome. You're going to get a great job. We're going to do a job best that we can. But that was a painful learning experience.
But Justin, those are the ones that you never forget. And I say it all the time. Even if you didn't go to college, that right there, education is not free.
No, it's not. And but you know what it did do after that is he's like, "Well, thank you very much for that. I greatly appreciate you being upfront and honest with me about it." And he's actually he's got me a lot of work.
Well, yeah, because you're honest and like you're, fair. And those are qualities that's easy to say, hard to act in the moment when you're taking it in the shorts.
Yeah. I mean, and we're talking on that job, it's a couple $1,000 a day. So I was out, 15 grand. I mean, I was looking at buying an equipment trailer that week, and there went that,
Yeah. Nope.
So,
Never mind.
yeah, I was thinking about it as college was cheap compared to this,
Amen. Amen.
What's kind of crazy is I'm not really using much of my college anymore. So my college degree and stuff anymore.
I mean, I went to college in the 90s. Like, the world is so different. Like, a few of the principles are there, but like I remember going to school for marketing, and I'm like, there was no digital marketing. Like, Google was I'm like, I remember being in college going, what the fuck's Google? Like, what are you looking at? Like, there was no Google AdWords. There was no YouTube, you know. So like the
Yeah.
landscape has changed drastically since I was in college.
It's almost like I kind of want to go back, a little bit, you
So
know?
I told Tracy, I said, let's find a town that has a university, like even if it's like a community college, it's like dying. And like instead
Hmm.
of having a senior citizen living, just make it a retirement. So like the villages in Florida, but with college. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
just like
So it's like Wyoming. I went to Wyoming Technical, which was a fantastic program. Um, it was brutally fast paced. I mean, 9 months of every single day, and that was back in late '04 that I did that. And I was green, man. I didn't have really a sense of like life or anything, right? I went to become a mechanic because that's what my dad was doing, and he had a pretty decent living. So that's how. And then we've always had cars and equipment and all that stuff. So it kind of was a natural path, anyways. And then I got in there, and it was just so fast paced. I didn't have that hands on. I didn't have any of that. Where I was still so focused on the basic fundamentals and then trying to grow and become an adult and all that on top of everything. Like I look back now, and it's like, man, if I could just go back right now and knowing what I know mechanically and understand where I don't have to worry about the fundamentals anymore. I can focus on the advanced and like, man, how awesome would that be? To go in there and do that. So I mean, that's on my bucket list. I think I want to go back and do it, but it's hard to do when you have kids and stuff.
yeah. I and again, like I told Tracy, this is on a realistic level, not a grand crazy dream. But I
Hmm.
told her, I'm like, yeah, when we retire and whatever we end up doing, I'm like, I'll probably go back to school for culinary arts because we
Cool.
still have to eat, and I don't want to. I just want to make nicer dinners, and it keeps me busy. Because that my
Yeah.
biggest fear of retirement is this. Like I watched my dad just become a shell of the man because he didn't do anything.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. Um, so like I'm into old cars, restoring trucks, stuff like that, right? And my wife asked me one day because I have a collection of old vehicles from the '40s through the '80s. Um, and she's like, "What are you gonna do with all these?" I said, "They're hard to find now. I can't imagine what retirement when I try to find them are going to be like. And I want to make sure that I have enough projects that I enjoy working on. So when I retire, I can make my shop time my 8 to 5.
Yeah,
It makes me get up out of bed. It makes me go out there and do stuff. And treat that like an 8 to 5 job in retirement. If I get one bolt in or 100 bolts in that day, it's a win. I'm still out in the shop. I'm still,
you're
you know,
using your
keeping my
mind, you're
mind
using the
sharp.
body.
Yeah, because obviously I won't be able to go out and break out lawns and stuff like that.
Nor will you want to.
It'd be kind of cool. Yeah, nor will I want to. And but to keep your mind just going, right? Um, but like things up here, like doing even my cars and my restoration stuff is just so dang expensive. It's just not the parts, it's the freight. I pay more money in freight than most parts cost.
I believe it.
So like it's so we take advantage of the lower 48 free shipping to Washington, like or any continental 48 state, right? So we get it all usually shipped to a forwarder in Washington. And holy moly, man, it's spendy. Um, so what I ended up doing when I said I bought those tools for the shop is we don't have like a Harbor Freight or anything like that up here. Um, so I have family in Washington, so I flew to Washington. I rented a pickup in Seattle because Fife, Washington is a shipping terminal. Um, so I was able to go rent a pickup. I built a crate, went to Harbor Freight Tools because I have really nice tools at my house, but I didn't want really nice tools in the shop where everybody can lose them and all that stuff. So I just went and I filled up this crate with my reward points tools, all the big stuff. And I went to a concert down there, ate out good and all that stuff, and the travel and all that stuff. Put that stuff on the barge. Like 1,000-pound crate cost me $300 by being able to do that.
Perfect.
The freight it all in, and it was super perfect. And I got the right to trip off as a business expense. So
Amen.
it was a win-win, right? had a great time, got some tools for the shop, spent some reward points, and that's how I do it, right? I try to look for opportunities like that
Yeah.
to save a little dollar and have some fun with it, you know. And but yeah, it's been a ride, man. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to the next year. Looking forward to the next 5 years, and then I hope to check back with you here in a few years because we got some pretty good plans
We'll
going on
have
in the
you back
works.
on, man. You let me know when you've done some things that you were striving to reach, and we'll put you back
Yeah,
on. We can
I don't
share
want
that
to.
journey and pick
Yeah, I
up
don't want to talk
again.
about the future plans too much about that, but so like I look at my business like or my life actually like a corporation almost, right? Like if your corporation's staying stagnant or not growing and they're just staying flat, they're failing, right? You always need to be pushing for that growth. So I look at that with my business or my life. Yeah, right now we're gonna have a little bit of a stagnant time because I'm trying to save up for some next level equipment. But there's that growth pattern with that, right? So what I'm always trying to do is next month, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I have this trajectory of what products I could offer, what things I can offer, what things I can do. And if it works out, it's going to be phenomenal. And right now the building blocks are in place to make things happen. So
You've got the right
it's not,
attitude to reach your goals, man. I mean, conserve your cash, make smart purchases, understand your ROI. You know the data on your numbers, your costs, and everything. Just put a prettier package on it, like we talked a little bit about it. But I mean, you've got all the makings of reaching whatever level you consider successful for you. So I'm excited to watch you
yeah,
grow over these next 2-3 years.
yeah, it'll be fun. And with these core guys, as long as I can keep them happy and they stick around. It's pretty neat. My newest guy, saying that how much he likes the company. He's like, I got some ideas for this business. And he came from Oregon where there's a lot more opportunities, a lot more different niches and stuff like down there that frankly, probably a lot of people never thought of up here.
Right.
And so like I was like, we definitely need to talk. And maybe there's something there that he can bring or he knows of that can open up another window or another opportunity here and just set us farther apart. And so keeping people like that happy and key, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah,
And
it'll be great, man. Well, Justin,
but
thanks
yeah,
so
that's
much
just what I
for
wanted.
yeah.
Thanks for having me, man. That's
No,
been
thanks
great.
so much. I mean, we usually try to do about an hour, and we're I think an hour 40, hour 50. It was just such a great conversation. I really, I was enjoying it, and hope the guys listening don't get turned off by a 2 hour long podcast when this comes out. But I thought it was
Yeah,
worth
hope
it, and I
not. And
enjoyed it.
like I'm an open book, man. That's what I try to tell people. I'm an open book, even with my clients. Like I'm not there to hide stuff. I'll tell you exactly how I get my numbers. I have nothing to hide. I'm transparent, and I think because of that, and I don't know how much you've looked at my Facebook page or not, but I mean you can see a lot of the comments and stuff like that are extremely favorable. A lot of them are multi-paragraph comments about how the quality and the customer service and stuff, and
Yeah, and all that
they're
goes a
they're
long
like
way.
you can tell with those ones are organic, right?
Yep.
And that's what I strive to do.
Awesome.
So
Well, Justin, thanks again. Listeners, if you're in the same situation as him, struggling on what digital tools you're trying to work with, we do have a partnership with Jobber. It is in the show notes. You can get a 14-day free trial. And if you decide to sign up for a year, you can save 20% off your first year. If you want to go more in depth in figuring out those tools, remember, you can schedule a free discovery call with me at groundbreakinggrowth.com. So until next week, guys, stay safe and we'll see you around.